Hey, everybody. This is Dana with CoachDanaInspires.com, and we are here for business inspiration. Every Tuesday, we come in and have a great interview with wonderful people that are going to help us get through this fabulous time of COVID. Yay! And today, we have a great interview coming up, and it is with Rich Hopkins, the Win Anyway guy. And boy, does he ever! And we're going to get into the content and have a great time. So, Rich, how are you? What's going on?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's Christmas time, which means I'm spending all my time going out and trying to buy as many gifts as I can for my 6 kids. Oh, and my wife. I think she wants something too.
Oh, well, she has you. What else could a girl want, right?
That's right. Actually, I
Okay,
spend Christmas
okay.
doing everything I can to make up for that.
Well, okay, at least I'm glad that you have the kids and they're all well. You're all healthy. Everybody's doing well. Is that right in
That
your
is
fam?
absolutely right. We have stayed away from the COVID so far.
Most excellent. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So now that we've been through this COVID thing, I don't know about you, but when this thing started, I thought, oh yeah, 2 months, yeah, whatever. We'll be right back to what we call normal. But now we're 9, 10 months into it. What do you feel? What do you see as the business climate out there? What are your customers telling you?
Well, a lot of the small business customers, at least here in Colorado, are a bit afraid. They're worried because we've just shut down again for the most part, just like we did in the spring, and we lost a lot of business, and we're losing a lot of business now. And the key for these people is really going to be to stick it out, to try to do everything they can to save their money, to be creative, find other ways to sell, find other ways to reach their customers, both with their marketing as well as their products. But just like any other climate, not every small business is going to survive. I mean, most small businesses don't last beyond the first couple of years in the first place, and COVID is just making it that much more difficult. I wish I had better news, but that is exactly what I'm seeing out there.
Right, right. It's really really tough, and I know the small businesses here where I live in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Yeah, I think small businesses everywhere, but especially in small towns, it's very very difficult. Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, so here we are. What do we as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners, what can we do? What can we do right now that really can make a big difference? You touched on it a little bit, but just expand on what can we be doing?
Well, there's a couple different levels of entrepreneurs. And when you think about small business, that's typically supported by the local area. And if the businesses can team up and really support each other and help build more of an esprit de corps in their town, to get that town to not shop on Amazon, but to shop at the web stores that these small stores have. And this isn't 20 years ago. I can shop at a small candy store at their website, even though it's just down the street. Maybe I can't go in anymore, but I can still shop online. So if those businesses can push that out there more, let people know how they can shop their stores just like they used to, but in new ways, they're going to survive. But as far as people like you and me, coaches, people who are speakers, it's just going to be marketing, marketing, marketing. We have to push out everything. It isn't going to be just dependent on what we can do locally. It's just changing our mindset to not who can we meet with in person, not who can we go speak to on a stage, but how can I prove that I'm valuable here on the screen, here in a Zoom presence or whatever platform you might be using. And doing shows like this is a perfect way to create some content and show what you can do as opposed to just what you can do in person.
Right, right. Because so many of us who are coaches and speakers and authors, and with the things that we do, we can do so much of that virtually. And I think you're right. Marketing, marketing, get out there and touch people, without a doubt. Yeah. So, you have this little win anyway. Now, I know what it means, but do all of our viewers, can you just explain, what does win anyway mean?
Win anyway is a term that I use, that I came up with while I was sitting in a waiting room outside a court office, because I'd gotten a speeding ticket and I was trying to fight that ticket. And that meant having to sit for hours for my moment in court. And while I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I got nothing else to do. I really need to work on what it is I want to tell people, what my message is. I mean, I've been giving messages for years, but I hadn't really ever honed in on something that would really be precise, something that would be memorable. And I realized that, everything I do to a point is competitive, but it isn't necessarily competitive with other people. Even if I'm in competition with other people, a lot of it is inwardly faced competition with myself. And that I'd spent so much of my life worrying about what other people thought, even while telling other people not to worry about what other people thought, that win anyway popped in my head. That the concept of winning, no matter what the final result is, was a way to be able to move yourself forward, because suddenly winning wasn't dependent on whether you actually attained the ultimate goal or whether other people were identifying you as the victor, as the ultimate winner, but it was something that you could define for yourself, that win, that victory. And the way that you do that is pretty simple. And it's not meant to be a settle for this strategy. It's more of a recognize what you've done strategy. You have to sit and realize, okay, I've gone after something and maybe I'm not there yet. So where am I right now? Where was I? Where am I right now? And what have I learned along the way? What hasn't worked? What has worked? Figure that out. And then when you can see that progress, and there is progress no matter which way you've gone, celebrate it. That's something that the world doesn't like to let us do. The world tells us we can't celebrate until we've attained what it is we say we want to attain. And what that can do is really reduce our self-esteem. It'll stop our momentum altogether. But if we can celebrate, we can build that energy in ourselves and help us move to the next step, which is formulate. Figure out what we're going to change to keep going after that goal, or possibly changing the goal altogether. Maybe we've been going after the same thing for 10 years and we're at a stage in our life where that isn't necessarily the biggest, most important thing we should be going after. And so we can change the goal without it being quitting. It just means switching gears, going after something more valuable. And then that takes us to the fourth stage, which of course is the final stage that every motivational speaker will always tell you: take action, do something. You formulated that plan, now you got to go for it. But at least now, because you're winning anyway, you know where you were. You have renewed energy to move forward, and you have a new plan or even a new goal so that you can act.
And I love that, because when you're talking about, celebrate and then you formulate, and the celebration oftentimes gets lost. And I think you're 100% correct, is to think about where you were. You have a starting point. We all do. And then where are we? Okay, so we're not where we want to be, but we're much closer. And I don't necessarily, I'm not a journaler, but I do make a list or two, but I'm not a journaler. I will not be a journaler, but a lot of people do like gratitude journals. And I think we could do the same thing when we look at our businesses and kind of where we're going. I started here. I had one client. Okay, where am I now? Wait a minute, I have 3 or 4. Oh, I now have 8 and 10, and how many do I want? And so I think celebrating, woohoo, I got another client. Okay, I may not have the 25,000 clients I want. That would make you crazy, but you get the idea. But you're getting more and better at what you do, and to celebrate that.
Right.
I like it. I like that. Is formulating the plan, is that tough to do?
Well, it can be, but since you've gone through the review process, you're formulating a plan based on what you've already done, based on what's worked and what hasn't worked. So you're not starting from scratch. I mean, typically we go after a goal and we don't formulate a plan at all. We just move forward. You really need
Right.
to set your goals and have a plan at the beginning. But winning anyway is more for those of us who are already in the middle of life. We can't always start at the beginning. We're usually in the middle of something. And so it's stopping in that middle of something so that we can get to where we want to go in a more efficient manner.
Right, right, right. And I, you touched on this, and you touched on changing the goal. And that can be really, really hard for some people. They've wanted this one thing so badly for so long that it's really tough. And do you have any advice for people who, they've just hung on to this for maybe too long, and now it's time to say, let's reformulate and let's go in a different direction that will be so much more rewarding and gratifying, and actually make you successful?
Sure. Well, a lot of times we get stuck in a job that we don't like. We get stuck in a relationship we don't like. We just get stuck and we don't like it. And it's a matter of trying to stop ourselves and really take a look at, well, how did we get here? Why are we still here? And deciding that we can go somewhere else or do something else. But there is also a level of appreciation for where we're at. Because a lot of what people do is continually think they should be here when they're still here. And they're trying to move forward, but they can't move forward because they're thinking about what they wish they had instead of understanding what they do have. I have a friend, his name is Jeff Ford, and we've been friends since we were little kids, 9 years old. We used to play superheroes. We'd make movies in his backyard. He had this little Super 8 video camera, and we'd make Spider-Man movies. He was always Spider-Man, and I was always the villain. Frankly, I think I was typecast. But he knew that he wanted to grow up and make movies. One of the few people I've ever met that knew exactly what he wanted to do as a kid, and then did everything he could to make it happen through adulthood. And he did. He went to the
Wow.
USC, University of Southern California Film School, got involved with movie making in Los Angeles, and became a film editor. Now, his dream was to direct movies, and he's never directed a film. But over the years, excuse me, he's been a film editor, of course, for small movies, independent movies, but then ultimately ended up working for Marvel Studios and has been the film editor on all the Captain America movies and all of the Avenger movies. He's not just any film editor, he's the film editor, the big guy. You see the credits at the beginning of the film and you see Jeffrey Ford on top. And I asked him in a podcast a couple of years ago if he felt like a failure because he was not directing. He was not making these movies. He was just a film editor. Because the world would want to look at him and say, hey, you haven't gotten to where you want to go. And it's easy for us to say, we haven't gotten where we said we'd be. We're still here. But Jeff had realized that he was getting to do everything he wanted to do anyway. He said, Rich, I get to work with the actors. I get a chance to put them in their best light. I get to work with the rest of the crew and help create plot points, help with the direction of the film. And at the end of the day, if the film flops, it's the director's fault. So he's got no responsibility. But he realized he got to do what he always wanted to do in the first place by directing films he's getting to do, and he's happy with it. And so he stopped pining for something and formulated a different goal, and that was to be the best film editor he could be. And now he's been the top film editor on the biggest film franchise of all time. And at this very moment, he's in Atlanta working on the next Spider-Man movie, meaning he's gone from Spider-Man movies in his backyard with me to the real deal.
Yeah. And that is, I think that is a fabulous example of having a big dream and then refocusing and still having a big dream, but just refocusing it on something else. And how exciting for him and how exciting for you. You know, maybe you could do some villain work on one of these. I think you'd be perfect for the part.
Thank you, Dana. Appreciate that.
Yes, well, anything, my friend. So
it wasn't
how
me.
does
It was
winning
the one-legged
anyway?
man.
Well, that's very true. So what does winning anyway? And how does that? You got me laughing. How does winning anyway apply to my life? How does it apply to the viewer's life? How do we put it to work for us?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's easy to think about winning and losing in terms of money, in terms of our career, in terms of all these goals. But we win or lose in our life all the time, just in everyday ways. And sometimes life throws things at us that we aren't even prepared to handle. Challenges that we didn't expect, challenges in our family life, challenges with our health. My daughter Bailey ended up, when she was 15, with a brain tumor. And it was a non-cancerous tumor, but it was still something we had to handle. So her mom and I decided to go quickly with chemotherapy. And after 3 months, we were going into the doctor expecting to hear that this tumor had shrunk. But the tumor had, in fact, grown just a little bit. It was inoperable. It was in a part of her brain that we could not get to safely. And any growth was potentially extremely hazardous. And we were really disappointed, obviously, and we were going to have to plan for another year or so of chemotherapy. And I remember looking at my daughter and asking her, I said, "Are you doing all right?" Well, my daughter has Asperger's as well. She does not emote very well. And she just shrugged her shoulders. "Well, what do you want to do next?" "I don't know, Daddy. Can we stop and get a slushie on the way home?" I'm like, "What? Do you not understand what is happening?" Of course,
Yeah.
I thought that. I didn't say that.
Yes.
Because she did. She did understand more than I did. What she understood was that she couldn't control the tumor, but she could control whether or not she got to go get a slushie on the way home.
Yeah.
And that's part of winning anyway, is understanding what you can control. It's living anyway. It's realizing that the life you have, the day that you have that day, is something that you have some choice over, whether that is a choice of what you do or how you feel about it. You can claim your own victories, even if the world may be looking in and saying, "How can you think that? Why aren't you worried about that? Why aren't you handling this the way we think you should handle it?" You have that choice to win anyway in your life. And Bailey next year is going to be turning 25. The tumor's still there, but it hasn't grown since. And she has gone out and made a good life for herself because she's chosen to every single day.
That is such an inspirational story. And it's so exciting, for her. I mean, I'm excited for her. And of course, your family. Wow, you must be elated with this. But I think it's exciting for us, for viewers, for me, to know that, to really, I think somewhere in the back of our minds, we kind of might know this, but to really embrace the idea that we do have control over every single day and what we do. Maybe not what happens to us, but what we do. And that the choices we make is winning. When we make a choice to keep moving forward, we're winning. And I think that's really powerful, really powerful. I really thank you for sharing that story, Rich. It is very important for all of us, I think, to think about and to know. Wow. So everybody out there, we need to be thinking about winning, no matter what our circumstances are. And Rich, do you have one last thing, that you want to hit home for us? Anything you want to tell us that reiterate what you have told us, or any little nugget that we can take away, because we're about out of time.
Sure. Well, the key is to be intentional. I really haven't said anything today that, like you said, we don't already kind of know in the back of our mind, but we don't typically take action on it. We don't typically sit down and intentionally take a look at our life and assess, review where we've been and where we are. We don't intentionally celebrate the victories that we've had because we oftentimes overlook them altogether, much less decide, hey, we can do something different or do something differently so that we can set ourselves up to continue to move forward. This is something we have to choose to do for it to work. And that means being reminded of it, not just today, but every day, so that we can continue to win regardless of our situation, regardless of the day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rich. That's great information. Wow. Rich is, I've known Rich, gosh, we've known each other for a long time. And Rich has always, always been a supporter of me, and I've always supported him in his endeavors. And I just really appreciate you being here, Rich, and sharing your wisdom and the things that you've gone through. And I just want to let everybody know that if you're interested in getting a hold of Rich, he is a fabulous presentation coach. So that's his really fabulous strong point there. So presentation coach, that's how we say it. Yes. So you can get a hold of Rich, richhopkins.com or rich@richhopkins.com. So if you want to reach out to Rich, ask him some questions about presentations or about how does he win anyway. Good grief, it's such an interesting thing to really talk about. Here's his information. Please reach out to him. He's a great guy, always helping. He's a great presenter. If you need a presenter, he's right there with you. And there's my information also right there. If I can be of any service to any of you, please contact me, CoachDanaInspires.com, and we would love to hear from you. I know that. So Rich, again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And until next Tuesday, everybody, be inspired in your business and win anyway. Thank you, Rich.